Blog Talk Radio.
Now, get up out your seats. Coming to the ring. Now, but I'm wondering if you can bring in with one win, no losses, undefeated in the streets, weighing in over 300 pounds. IHWE Radio. When the round bell is ringing in the ring, then I be singing. I'm here to get that crowd loud. I'm wondering if you can bring it. When the round bell is ringing in the ring, then I be singing. But I'm here to get that crowd loud. But I'm wondering if you can bring it. When the round bell is ringing in the ring, then I be singing. I'm here to get that crowd loud. But I'm wondering if you can bring it. When the round bell is ringing in the ring, then I be singing. But I'm here to get that crowd loud. But I'm wondering if you can bring it.
All right, everybody. Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. on the Pacific Coast of California. And you are tuned in once again to IHWE Radio. We are coming off a stellar week last week. 2 back-to-back shows at the CAC. 1 hot night of wrestling action last Sunday, June 8th at Sendera Center. My co-host right here, David Fuller, is joining me tonight. But, man, he's tired. I'm tired. It's nice to have a slow pace tonight. It's going to be a good show. David, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm still rocking and reeling from this past Sunday. I'm still recovering. I was tossed out of the ring by my good buddy Matt Riviera. But you know, there's a time and a place to handle that situation, and that rest assured I will. But I believe last week was probably the greatest week in company history. We made a blockbuster announcement on Tuesday at the Carlos Riley Club. Michael did a wonderful job in Las Vegas. He was able to enjoy himself. He was able to be a company ambassador. He was able to correspond with me thousands of miles away. And we were a real good team. And we did a really good job last week. If you didn't listen to our shows, you can catch them on IHWEnow.com. We interviewed everybody from Adam Pearce to Cheerleader Melissa to Santana Garrett or Brittany on TNA, the legendary Destroyer, the legendary Reggie Parks, Morgan Dollar. The list goes on. Carl Lauer. The list goes on and on and on of the people that took a few minutes to join us last week during our back-to-back simulcast. I believe it truly was the best week. Michael got to go half Vegas, and I wasn't able to be there. And then this past Sunday, I went and we had our live event. Michael wasn't able to be there, but we both supported each other in our endeavors, and we both worked via social media while the other one was physically doing work. The other one would be on social media working. We make a hell of a team, and I think this past week we proved that we are a fantastic team.
Oh, definitely, man. And believe me, you're talking about tired after basically 3 days. I mean, getting the video presentation ready, plus the 2 shows. By the time I was heading home Thursday, I was mentally beat. I had nothing. I was so tired. We'll talk about that later on, but, man, there was a lot of work going to put together. I mean, people are listening to the shows, and I'm over there, and here's, Santana Garrett. Please welcome to IHW Radio, Reggie Parks. You're doing the interviews, and I'm running from here to here to get these people because, unfortunately, we had a plan. We were going to have a lineup. We had it all set up, but it was on the fly. So, I mean, there was a lot going on.
But you know what? Not to cut you off, but, yeah, you did do that. But you know what? We were able to do it, and within seconds, we improvised and we got it done. And, I mean, Michael was physically doing labor by running around, and then and Michael will learn this as he gets more comfortable in hosting and being able to work on the fly. Because of my years in wrestling and because of my years directing and because of my years of being on screen as a character, I learned to work on the fly. And Michael would throw anybody and everybody on the air, and within seconds, I had to come up with an interview. And wasn't always good because you don't necessarily know everything about everybody who's on the other line. But you got to be ready to go. you're doing a live radio show, and especially it's not just us here on the studio. We're live in Las Vegas during the biggest convention there is in professional wrestling. Excuse me, not a convention. It's a reunion. It's a gathering. It's an honor ceremony. Morgan will have my butt. It's the biggest gathering as far as nothing against Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, nothing against Waterloo, nothing against the Gulf Coast Wrestlers Union. They're all great, but I think the CAC is the biggest gathering annually of wrestlers and legends and fans and just everybody you can think of. I think it's the biggest gathering. So when you're doing it live, and you have professionals, you have somebody like Adam Pearce on the line, you have to be ready to go. But you go from Adam Pearce to Andrea the Giant, who I'm not familiar with, but I had to jump online and research her, to Team High Def. Again, nothing against these guys. I've just never heard of them. Know them now, thankfully, thanks to Michael putting them on. Hopefully some other people know them. Because that's what we do on this show. It's not just about the Jim Cornettes and the Mick Foleys and the Kevin Bonairs, who are legends, and thank goodness for what they've done. It's also about the people who are just starting to get out there. Everybody needs more awareness, everybody. And that's what we try to do here. So kudos to us both. Michael was actually in Las Vegas running around doing his thing. We're gonna trade shifts. We're gonna trade places on Sunday night, September 28th, because I'm announcing right now we will be live from IHWE Old School Hustle. And Michael will have a correspondent here, and we will be live, and Michael will be hosting the show in sunny California, but he's also going to be doing it live from Fort Worth, Texas, on the biggest IHWE event of all time. So now you will get to go through what I did, and vice versa.
Just don't put Barnett on the line.
Lucky for you, there'll be some friends of yours there. Barbara Goodish will be there. Bill Anderson will be there. You'll have some friends there, so you should be okay.
Oh, we love Big Bill Anderson.
Yes, we do.
And by the way,
he's dealing with the flu right now.
There you go. Wish him well. Hope he's feeling better soon. I'm sure he's either listening tonight or he's going to be listening later on in the archives. But man, Bill had nothing but good things to say about us like all week. I mean, one of the things he actually said was he will do anything for us that we ask of him that's within his, within reason for him. He is supportive of what we do. So, I mean, Big Bill Anderson, awesome guy. Loved having a chance to meet him. And you brought up Team High Def. I'm going to tell a funny little story here real quick. I met Team High Def Monday afternoon. They came by the table. They gave me their information in case we were interested in maybe booking them for a show. I'm going to send you that information. So I told them I'd pass it on. But they came up to me Tuesday while you're doing an interview, and they're like, oh, hey, you came and asked us about. I'm like, and you're Team High Def, right. Here you go. Here's the microphone. So you talk about you being on the spot. They kind of got put on the spot right away because I handed him the phone and said, here you go, talk to David. And they were great. I mean, they went with it. They answered the questions. So, I'd like to get them on for an interview, later on down the road where we can actually sit down, talk with them, and learn more about them and their career. So
definitely, they had some good training. The Young Bucks. I don't know if one of them or both of them were trained by the Young Bucks. But anyway, Michael's got a guest who's calling in. I believe he's on the line. But real quick, stay on the line with us, folks, tonight because in hour number 2, we've got Craig Johnson coming on. Craig Johnson, you can probably see him on ESPN Classics. He was the man behind the microphone after Mark Lawrence was done in Dallas. He was a man involved in USWA and Global Wrestling Federation. He was the play-by-play man. He was kind of in between the Dole Kings and the Mark Lawrences, and he made his return to pro wrestling this past Sunday at IHWExperience. First time in, I believe, 2 decades, and Craig's going to be on with us after 9 o'clock, and he's going to tell us his impressions of the event, maybe tell us some stories about working in the Sportatorium. But Michael's going to, I think, reflect on his week in Las Vegas, and then we will go to hour number 2 and reflect more on this past Sunday. So let's do it.
Oh, we're going to, waiting on our guest to call into the studio here, but we're going to give a little build-up first. Out there on YouTube, if anybody's been listening lately, it's been shared on a lot of the social media sites recently. There's a song out right now called The Heels Lament, I Would Do Anything for Heat. David, have you heard this yet? No. Okay. Anyways, The Heels Lament, parody of the Meatloaf song, I Would Do Anything for Love. We all know the song, 1990s classic, I guess you could say. But the gentleman behind the song is Brian Zane. Has his own web series called Wrestling with Regret. He's going to be joining us here in just a few moments. But right now, here on IHWE Radio, I'm going to play The Heels Lament. And then, I'm hoping, we should be joined online by Brian Zane. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is The Heels Lament, I Would Do Anything for Heat.
Rub a jobber's face into the mat. I would do anything for heat. I'd tell a little girl she's fat. And I'll never refrain from making fun of the local sports team. So mean, and I would do anything for heat. Oh, I would do anything for heat. I would do anything for heat. But I won't do that. No, I won't do that. And some days you're getting my time, and some days you have to cheat. Some days are easy 'cause you're working a guy who was a name. And some nights you're going over, and some nights you're getting beat. Some nights it's a no contest, and those are the ones that are kinda lame. You might call it cheap heat, but hey, it's still heat. Yes, true. I know you'll get riled up, so I'll keep coming back to you. As long as the sun is still rising, as long as the fans are still buying, so keep coming back for more of you. You better believe it, that I would do anything for heat. Curtain jerking or the main event, I would do anything for heat. Call a wrestler and his fans low rent. But I'll never forgive myself if I don't make it cry tonight. And I would do anything for heat, but I won't do that. No, I won't do that. I would do anything for heat. I want to bring you to your feet, but I just won't do that. I would do anything for heat. I want to get you off your feet, but I just won't do. And some days I might get racist, and some days I'm not PC. Some days I just do what the Booker man is asking me. And some nights I use the R word, and some nights I make them bleed. Some nights I get so mad when all the smarks say they love me. Lord knows I'm trying, I'm just doing what I'm trained to be. But since kayfabe is dead, all the fans, they think they're friends with me. As long as the bookies come off in, you know that my stance will not soften. I'll keep coming back to make you boo. You better believe it, and I would do anything for heat. I'll laugh and make fun of your wife. I would do anything for you'll never understand why it feels so right to be so wrong, and I would do anything for heat. Oh, I would do anything for heat. I would do anything for heat, but I won't do that. No, I won't do that.
All right, everybody. That was the Heels Lament. I would do anything for heat. And we are being joined right now in the studio by the man behind the song and video, the Z-Man, Brian Zane. Brian, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the show. I never thought I would hear my song through the phone and make it sound like I was on hold with Geico, but, it's the first time for everything. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, there we go, man. Glad to have you on. This song has actually become rather popular. It's only been up for a couple weeks, but I believe the last time I checked, you were around 1,500 views, and it's being shared by a lot of people. I mean, it's not just, people that you work with. Personnel, I've seen it shared by, guys from the World Class Territory and other names that are just picking it up through YouTube and other people. What is the story behind the Heels Lament?
Well, I'll tell you, it was a few weeks ago. It was about 2 weeks before the video went live. I was working a show in Reno, Nevada, where I currently live, and I was having a discussion with, I was talking with one of my wrestler friends, Joe DeSole, who is a wrestler in the NorCal area, and he and I were talking, and he brought up the music video I did last summer, which was a parody of Blurred Lines, and that was a wrestling-themed. It was really, the lyrics were really kind of catered toward my show, so it was one of those things where you had to see the show to get a lot of references, or at least be a very, knowledgeable fan to know what I was talking about. But anyway, we were talking about that song, and then the topic came up, well, what could I do to follow up on that? And, I thought about, well, what if every summer I do, like, the song of the summer? Because Blurred Lines was a hit last year, and so I was just capitalizing on that. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just kind of wait and see what the music scene has in store this summer, and then I'll capitalize on that. And then Joe DeSole told me, well, you can do other songs. You can do older songs, that'd be cool. And then literally as he said that, the phrase, I would do anything for heat, popped in my head in that little tune. So that's all I really had to go off of on that Saturday. And then it wasn't until Monday that after 24 or 36 hours of letting that event stew in my head, I wrote the lyrics out. So in a couple of days, I had the song written, and then I recorded it, and then that next weekend, I shot all the stuff, and then, literally 2 weeks after that conversation was when the video went live. And, it's really cool to get the feedback from people. A lot of wrestlers and fans that I enjoy talking with, a lot of wrestlers I respect, have told me how much they like it. Actually, one of the first Facebook likes I ever saw for the video was from Stevie Richards, so I thought that was kind of cool. So it's been really cool to see the feedback and get people talking about it, saying it's something that every wrestling fan needs to see. It's something that means a lot to me to hear people say that.
Oh, it's a great video. I mean, you and I have known each other for, 10 years now probably. And, I know your career in the ring and all that. But I didn't realize, your, musical talent. I mean, what's your background in the music scene and all that? I mean, it's actually pretty good.
Well, thank you. I've sung for just about most of my life. Growing up, I'd always been in choirs at school and everything, and I've pretty much been singing for a long time. And these days I get my singing on by doing karaoke when I can. And of course, this song is just kind of like karaoke to me. But it's singing, being musical has always been part of my life. I dabble in instruments. I can strum a couple tunes on the guitar, but mostly what I'm strongest at is singing. And so I've always been a performer, which is why I feel like why I enjoy doing wrestling so much, is because it's basically performance. So that's pretty much the extent of my musical background. I've been singing for for almost all my life.
But you can't tickle the ivories, and not play the piano?
I can play a mean chopstick. That's about the extent of it.
Yeah, everyone, if you get a chance, you need to go out on YouTube, and we'll give you the address, and I'll have to look it up on YouTube and all that. You got to see the video. I mean, it's a great video. I mean, visually, it's a great video. I mean, you can see right from the beginning that obviously it's making fun not just of parodying the Meatloaf song that we all know and love, but it's also parodying the video, because we all remember the video was all grand with the castle and the dark room, and it was Meatloaf. I mean, the guy's known for being, a great stage show and all that, and his presence. But, this video is also doing it. I mean, the video is great. So we're going to make sure people see that, but it goes all the way to the end with that final little joke that when people see the video, they'll catch what I mean about, you're not tickling the ivory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and let me tell you something. It's really nice to have a day job where you work in television, because then you have access to all this really cool equipment and, things like that. Because with Blurred Lines, I, worked at one station, had access to a really great green screen and did all that. And then with this one, I have all this great lighting equipment and the HD camera. Because the personal camera I use for Wrestling with Regret is a little $80 number that, anyone who watches the show knows it's not the best quality in the world. It doesn't really have to be. But with this one, I really wanted to step it up with the music video. So, I definitely took a lot of pride in getting this extra equipment and to make it look really nice. There are some things that are definite homages to the original video, the candlelight and things like that. I couldn't quite get the prosthetics, the beastly prosthetics that Meatloaf had, or the mullet wig. But I think I actually tweeted Meatloaf the link, so I don't know if you've seen it or not. But I haven't gotten a response yet, but we'll see someday.
If anyone out there has access, knows how to get a hold of Meatloaf, make sure he sees this video. He needs to see it. It's that good. I mean, I can't say enough great things about it. I was showing the video to people at CAC last week. I was playing the song. I have it downloaded on my phone. So there was a lot of people that got to listen to it. In fact, I think for a minute or two, Terry Funk might have actually looked over my shoulder when I was playing the video for one of the Canadian guys. So I think even Terry Funk might have taken a look at it for a second. So.
Well, that'd be quite the honor. Thanks for spreading the word at CAC. I wish I could have been there this year, but I have a child on the way, so I'm saving my shekels. And by the way, after this interview, I'm going to be having the most difficult wrestling match of my life. I'm going to try and install the infant car seat for the first time. So that's what I'm looking forward to after this interview.
Have fun with that, man. Latch system, use your knee, put a lot of weight into it. Yeah, work it. Trust me. I've done it 3 times now.
Yeah. So
it looks simple in the directions, man, but no.
Yeah, that's what they say about Parenthood too.
And good luck with that, by the way. A couple weeks. You said about 3 weeks left, I believe.
Less than 2, actually.
Less than 2. All right.
Yeah, Mrs. Zane is at 38 weeks, 38 and a half weeks now.
All right, well, congratulations on that, and best of luck with everything. Hope labor and delivery goes well and all that. David, my co-host, he's a new father. Luke's about, I believe, 6 months old now, so, and I have 3 of my own, so believe me, we all know what it's like and all that, and congratulations to you and yours and all that, and I hope everything goes well.
Yeah.
But back to the music thing, you've done Blurred Lines, which I've seen. I enjoyed Blurred Lines, and I watch Wrestling with Regret. You have done, the Heels Lament. You got anything else kind of lined up? Because, you might have a second career here, or a third career, or fourth. I don't know how many things you do.
Yeah, well, right now only one career that pays, so that's the trouble. But as far as any kind of future music videos, honestly, I have no idea. Because what happens with the problem with my creative process is I focus so much on one thing is that once I'm done with it, I'm left going, well, now what? Because that's kind of what's been happening with my show, Wrestling with Regret. I have all these episodes built up, and I knock them all down, and then I go, uh-oh, I don't know what to do next. And so that's why I take these little hiatuses for a while, and that's kind of what happened with this last one. I did 18 episodes, and I actually thought I was only going to do 10, but then as time went by, these different topics came up where I thought, I can write that, and I have these little editorials that I want to talk about. So, but then I just kind of think, okay, I need to recharge my batteries. I need to, pull Chris Jericho and come back in a shinier vest in a few weeks, and so right now I am working on some new episodes for Wrestling with Regret for the next season, so to speak. and I've got a few in the can right now. I've got a lot that I've conceptualized and like planning on writing. If you've seen the show and you know that I've reviewed some wrestling video games in the past, that's going to continue with some Xbox games. And I actually found a really bizarre, really obscure wrestling board game called Wrestling Madness. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, but I kind of stumbled upon it by accident, and I said, well, I have to find this game. I have to play it and see how it goes. So I haven't played it yet, but I've taken it out of the box and looked at some things, and so this should be a very interesting review. But I've got a lot of stuff down the pike. So Wrestling with Regret is not dead yet, and having a child may slow things down, but as long as I have some episodes built up, it should go a while.
So for those out there who may not know about Wrestling with Regret, what's the concept behind that show?
Well, I don't know if anyone is familiar with the Nostalgia Critic or the Angry Video Game Nerd, but that was kind of my inspiration. It's basically me reviewing and talking about things in wrestling in general. It's mostly stuff from the past. I occasionally dabble in things that are happening currently in wrestling. But it's basically just me talking about wrestling, like weird, bizarre wrestling angles and gimmicks in a comical way. And I do more than just things that are storyline based. I do things more than just on TV. I also cover, I've talked about movies with wrestlers in them. Like I said before, I talked about video games. I talk about, a lot of different things just about wrestling. And I try and, be very clever and funny with my writing. I hope the jokes all kind of hit the mark. That's the tough thing about comedy. But, yeah, it's just something I wanted to do for a long time. I wanted to do like a wrestling spin on, Nostalgia Critic. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to thatguywiththeglasses.com. That's the Nostalgia Critic's website, and he reviews classic movies, classically bad movies. And so that's kind of what I do. I just do bad wrestling stuff, and I make fun of that.
Yeah, I've never heard of the Nostalgia Critic. I'll definitely take a look, though, because, sometimes those bad movies are so bad they're great. And, wrestling-wise, it's the same thing. I know you did an episode a while back, the whole Muhammad Hassan storyline from the beginning up until, the end of it when The Undertaker basically killed him. But, I thought it was great. I always kind of enjoyed, the Muhammad Hassan character. I thought they had something there, so I watched your spin on it, and I enjoyed it. And I think I've pretty much seen every episode of Wrestling Regret you've done. So, it's enjoyable. If you got some time, they're not long episodes. They run about, 12, 15 minutes maybe?
Yeah, the average run time is about 12 to 15 minutes. Like, early in my time at Wrestling with Regret, I was kind of going off the rails. And my fourth episode was a review of Ready to Rumble, which went 24 minutes, which I'm never going to do anything that long again. The longest since then I've gone is close to 20, and those are my top 8s. Where I kind of review, I did the top 8 worst Vince McMahon storylines, the top 8 worst Kane storylines, except for Katie Vick. That's not going to be on the list if you haven't seen it.
Nope,
so.
You never touched Katie Vick.
Yeah. Katie Vick's an easy number 1, so that's why I didn't put it on the list. So I had to be creative and think of what else crappy has Kane done. It's actually a pretty long list. So
yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got a little bone to pick with you, though, man. I saw your Ready to Rumble review, like I said, 24 minutes, and you basically tore it apart. But Ready to Rumble is one of my favorite movies. I can pop that thing in. I'm guaranteed I'm going to laugh from the beginning to the end. You can't take Ready to Rumble seriously. I'm really hoping when they made the film that they weren't even trying to take it seriously. I enjoy it. I thought it was a great film. I laugh every time I see it. Like I said, it's one of those that's so bad it's great. So, personally, I take a little kind of, I get a little ruffled the way you kind of skewered Ready to Rumble, because, I even bought, the script. One of the booths at CAC was selling the script to Ready to Rumble, one of the screenplay books or whatever, and I actually bought that.
Well, I hope you didn't get too much. I hope you didn't have to pay too much for it, because you got what you paid for. But let me see, the thing about Ready to Rumble is you say that I hope they weren't taking it seriously. Well, that's, I would think that if you were a national wrestling company and you had this opportunity to go on this huge platform with a movie which shows your best and brightest wrestlers in this fictional story, but to have it be at the centerpiece of your movie, I would certainly hope the movie was taken seriously. I know this wasn't going to be Citizen Kane, but if you're going to make a comedy, at least have a comedy that makes sense and has, likable characters and funny jokes. If you're going to be a comedy, at least try to be funny. There were so many times, as I mentioned in the review, where they go for a joke, but it just kind of misses the mark, or it just goes on like, okay, I can kind of see what they're going for, but it doesn't make me laugh, like the dripping septic tank as they're eating, or when Sean is singing along to Britney Spears in the guy's bedroom, and that's the punchline. Like, okay, it was just one of those things where, if I turn my brain off, which is hard for me to do, if I turned my brain off and watched it, yeah, I could see there's some redeeming comedic value in it. But as someone that's trying to get wrestling over, because you know as well as I do that wrestling needs as much goodwill as it can get. We didn't get a good wrestling movie until The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke. Everything else before then and since then has been awful. So I think that when you have a movie like that was on such a big stage, a big platform, it needs to deliver.
Yeah, you've got a point. I mean, wrestling in the movies hasn't been covered very well, unfortunately. I mean, I remember, Beyond the Mat was supposed to have been the big movie, and you look back on Beyond the Mat now, and it shows its age a lot. It's not as great as it was when I first saw it. The Wrestler, definitely. The Wrestler is one of those, you'll be able to watch that, 10, 15 years from now, and that story's still going to be the same. It's the old wrestler who just is holding on to that last spot, time in the spotlight. So, yeah, definitely, the wrestling movies don't age very well, unfortunately. And there have been, and I own, quite a few of the collections. Like, you mentioned The Wrestler. There's also the one called The Wrestler, which is back in, I believe, in 1978 with Ed Asner. Huh?
Yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. That is the topic of my first new episode, which will drop eventually. I don't know when it's going to come out, but the first new episode I will release is my review of 1974's The Wrestler. And, yeah, it's definitely a movie that has not aged well. I mean, you think about other movies that came out that year. I think about 1974. The Godfather 2 came out. Chinatown came out. Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. 2 Mel Brooks movies came out in 1974. Even Flash Gordon, I think, was a better movie. The slightly pornographic parody of Flash Gordon was better than The Wrestler with Ed Asner and Vern Gagne. That was a treat to review. I had a lot of fun doing that one. And I think the fans will appreciate it when that episode finally drops.
I'll give you something. It's not a movie, but if you can find it, I'm sure you've probably heard of this. I think they did 2 or 3 episodes. It was a TV series in the 80s. Roddy Piper and Jesse Ventura was called Tag Team.
Yeah, Tag Team.
You heard of it?
I know of it. I haven't seen it. Body Slam is a movie starring Piper and Ventura. I want to review down the line.
Benedict, yeah.
So,
if you get a chance to see Tag Team, though, take a chance. You can find the episodes floating around sometimes on YouTube. Some people have them downloaded. I think there's only like 2 or 3 episodes. Get a chance, watch it. Basically, Piper and Ventura, they're police officers who are kicked off the force because they're too violent. So they become like personal security or private security. And yeah, I remember I watched it. I think I was like 9 or 10. I was a little guy, well, as little as I could be when I was 9 or 10. But we have a friend of our show here, Big Bill Anderson. Big Bill Anderson is the ring announcer in the episode of Tag Team, and he's announcing Piper and Ventura come and ring. But unfortunately, his voice is dubbed over by Mean Gene Okerlund. So you don't, and people know who Mean Gene is. He's got a recognizable voice. You hear his voice, but that ain't him in the ring.
That is bizarre.
But yeah, definitely worth checking out on that one.
Sure.
Anyways, you've done wrestling with regret. You've done music. You also work in the ring. When I first met you was when you were training. You started off with when I met you, you were working with Portland Wrestling. You did a few matches with them, with Frank Culbertson. I know you worked with West Coast Wrestling Connection up on Oregon, and then you moved to Reno, and you're actually working with groups on there. When did you get started in wrestling?
Well, I actually started training back in late 2003, just after I started college at the University of Oregon. I learned that back up in Portland, Buddy Rose, late great Buddy Rose, and Colonel DeBeers were training students up there. So every chance I got, which honestly wasn't that much because I didn't have a car, I had to go Greyhound or get a friend to give me a ride. I would go up to Portland and I would train. And so I did that on and off for a good 2 years. And then, like you said, I started with Portland Wrestling. I started as a cameraman doing stuff like that because, again, I have my TV background, so I was able to use that to find my way into the promotion that way. I did that for a while before they gave me the chance to wrestle. Why they gave me the chance, I have no idea. Because if you watch my stuff on YouTube, I was not very good. If I go back and I look at my old stuff, and then I see people I know who are just starting out wrestling and who trained just as long as I had, if not more, and they're just killing it. And I just look at my stuff like, what was I doing? I can't believe I wrestled for a year. That's how bad I was. I had some great moments. I had some great memories in the ring, but when I play it back, I'm like, I don't know. So that's after I did that for a year, I made the switch over to manager because people realized I could talk. Never really sound like a face when I talked, though. When I was just myself, I kind of came off sounding kind of like a dick. So that's why I came over and became a manager, and that's been a lot of fun. I've been doing that ever since. So I've been in the business now between wrestling and managing for a little over 8 years. So it's been quite a fun ride, especially here in Northern California. There's a lot more opportunities to work, I feel. And yeah, man, it's a different, and because you live in Northern California, so you kind of feel for it. But it's a whole different climate there for wrestling than it is in Oregon. It's just different styles, different ethic almost.
Oh, definitely. You're saying Northern California, and you're talking like I believe you work SPW. You've worked with SPW before?
Yeah, I've worked with SPW in the past. I haven't had a chance to do that lately. And in the last few months of APW's existence, before Roland Alexander passed away, I worked a few shows with them, managing the Almighty Sheik, former NWA champion. That was a cool run. And I've worked for a few other feds in Northern California and the Reno Wrestle Factory. And the first and only time I went to Cauliflower, I worked for Adrenaline Unleashed and Future Stars of Wrestling. So I've gotten around. I would like to. It's funny, when I first found out that my wife and I were expecting, I tried to get booked to as many places as I could. Trying to get it all out of my system before settling down with the child. And since then, I've only been booked in 2 shows. It's been hard, because I've had other things going on. I was in a play that made it difficult for me to to attend shows. Just things, lack of opportunity for other feds that didn't need managers, and so that's been difficult. But it's always fun when I do it, though.
Well, yeah, and like I said, you're saying Northern California, and we're talking Sacramento, Hayward, those areas. I'm about an hour from the Oregon state line, so we consider up here in the Redwoods, Northern California, where you're at is like, you're talking like Central California, but I'm more close to the Oregon level. But, through SPW, Big Time Wrestling, I know a lot of the promoters. I've been to some of their shows down there. So, yeah, the shows down there in California, they're more, there's a lot of hard hitting. Like there's like Hood Slam down there, and it's a lot more. You kind of got an ECW style feel in some of these groups. While in Oregon, a lot of the organizations up there are still kind of trying to do the old school style thing that was back with Portland wrestling and everything else. So, yeah, there definitely is a different dynamic between the two. And I've always enjoyed, watching. And like you said, I actually have a couple of your matches on DVD because you did make Portland television. You made TV a couple times. I remember that. Yeah. It wasn't always dark matches. So I actually have some of your stuff on DVD. I believe one of them is against Paul Isadora, and if anybody knows who that is, he's about 7 feet tall, and you got chokeslammed 2-3 times. And I do have a little bit of the infamous Sideshow where you were down in the bowels of the Cleaver Armory with Sideshow, the Clown Killer. And if people get a chance to go see it, go out and take a look, or else they're going to think we sound like a bunch of nuts talking about Sideshow, the Clown Killer, or whatever.
Yeah, the matches are on YouTube. Just type in, Brian Zane, and you'll be sure to find him.
Now, managing-wise, I've always kind of looked at it. You remind me, and maybe this is where you pick up your style, you remind me kind of Jim Cornette. You kind of got that very loud, very boisterous, very bright-colored suits. I mean, you're very known for your outfits and all that. But, did you kind of pattern after Jim Cornette? And who were some of the managers that, you try to follow?
Yeah, I'd say my biggest influences are Cornette and Paul Heyman. Now, everyone likes to make the comparisons with me and Cornette, especially because, of the way I look. I can't change my genetics. I can't change the fact that I have brown hair and I have to wear glasses, So that's the first thing that people see. And then, of course, when I first started managing, I did wear the loud dress attire, dress shirts and ties and stuff. So I could see there was definitely it was easy for people to make that comparison. So since then, I've been wearing tracksuits, velour tracksuits, which you can see all of them on my show and in the music video and stuff. That's a way for me to try and break out as my own guy. I don't want people to think of me as like the next Jim Cornette or a Jim Cornette ripoff, because that is not what I try and be. I try and be kind of my own guy, And like when I am managing, I am loud. I am kind of obnoxious. I don't talk very fast, but I just, I talk, I just talk a lot of trash is essentially all I do. And, I especially love to get into it with the kids. They're the best. It's hard when they try and steal your spray bottle, but, it's just, I definitely pattern myself with kind of a hybrid of the Heyman Cornette hybrid. But yeah, it's definitely easy for people to make the Cornette comparisons, just because, again, I can't help how I look.
I wouldn't say it's just look. I'd say also just kind of, the style, the vocal inflection. There's a lot more to it. I mean, you're obviously, I would say, influenced by Cornette. I would never say a copy, because nobody can copy Jim Cornette. That man's one of a kind. But I would definitely say there's an influence. But I'm going to share one little quick story here, and then we're going to wrap this up, and I'll let you kind of let people know where they can find you. But I don't know if you remember this or not. Went to a show, West Coast Wrestling Connection, back 2007, I think it was. Brought my wife with me at that time. We were, just started dating and all that. She was coming along on a road trip with us for the first time. And I was sitting front row. You were managing Baden and Dustin Snyder. They were the tag champions. Mm-hmm. And I was flipping you a load of crap, because that's what I do, and you play off of it. I mean, that's what you need. You need us to do that. And my wife kept going, shh, be quiet. He's going to get mad at me. I'm like, it's all part of the show. We got to do it. And I threw out the line. I was like, Z-Man. You looked at me and you're like, yeah. And I'm like, you got a great team, man. These guys are awesome. And you're like, oh, thank you. And I said, which one's the pitcher? Which one's the catcher? And you caught on to it. My wife thought I had lost my mind. But Dustin Snyder, you mentioned him. You go, oh, this guy here, he's saying this. And Dustin Snyder just starts off with, oh, how'd I know his mom liked baseball? And, I mean, my wife just literally thought I'd lost my mind. Like, you were going to come over there and just slap me silly for throwing this out there.
It's funny. I'm trying to remember that. I do remember something like that. Yeah, I do. The more I think about it, I do recall that moment. It's funny. I try so hard to be like, you just have influenced by Cornette, but I still haven't. I'm still working on the snappy comebacks. I'm not quite good at that yet, but I will say the snappiest comeback I ever had was this past year, and part of me feels terrible for it, because I was working the show in Reno, and what was it? This one girl, but it's kind of be like a 10 or 11-year-old girl, who was a little bit heavy set. She's yelling at me. And can I say derogatory slurs on the show? Is this uncensored?
Go for it.
Okay, so basically this girl, who's about 10 or 11 or maybe 12 tops, who's in the front row of a show in Reno, she yelled at me, "Hey, Brian, saying you're a faggot." And I go, "Yeah? Well, you should eat a salad." And that was really, without any hesitation, that's what I said to her. And all the kids around her immediately knew what I was referring to, and they all went, "Ooh," and stuff like that. And I thought at the time it was hilarious, but then I thought, oh man, what if I set her off on this downward spiral toward eating disorders and depression over body issues? Like that part, I don't think it went. I hope it doesn't go to that. But at the time, I was like, oh man, I thought it was being so clever. But yeah, that's the thing. It's funny because that always seems to be the default thing when people make fun of me and the people I wrestle. I don't know if the whole gay thing. I don't know if it has to do with the fact I wear purple and pink all the time or what. But I definitely do remember your comment now.
I had to throw it out there just because, you know, I mean, I know Eric Bain, I know Dustin Snyder really well, so, I mean, for me it was fun, but the fact that my wife was sitting next to me and thought that you were going to come over and just slap me for making that comment shows just what a great job you were doing. Because, I mean, she was new to all this. She didn't know any of the behind-the-scenes stuff. So, you know, you were doing some good work back then, too, and that was 2007. That was 7 years ago, so.
Yeah, that was my first year managing, too, yeah. No, I could never slap someone for something like that. Usually I'm the one getting slapped, so, or threatening to be slapped. But yeah, no, it's definitely a lot of fun being a manager. It certainly hurts a lot less than being a wrestler. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But managing is fun, and
no
I you know, you were saying?
Oh, sorry. I was saying no choke slams or anything like that. Don't have to worry about those.
Oh no choke slams. Right now I'm actually managing Paul Zadora. So right now he is the choke slammer. I am not the choke slammee.
There we go. Full circle. Works its way around. All right, Brian.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're going to wrap this up real quick. Give you a chance here. Let people know how they can find you out on social media, websites, anything like that. Here's your chance.
All right. Let me list them all off. I'm on Twitter at ZManBrianZane. I don't recommend you go to that one because I barely Twitter. But I am on Facebook, the Z-Man Brian Zane. Wrestling with Regret. Regret is spelled with a W at the beginning because I love alliteration. There's a Facebook page for that, Wrestling with Regret. The YouTube page, Wrestling with Regret. I also have it on blip.tv/Wrestling with Regret. That is where all new content will be posted from now on once I get to posting new content. Right now I am currently repurposing or rebroadcasting old episodes on Blip. And then I will eventually work my way to new episodes. So there's that. I also have a Vine, Brian Zane. Look me up. My profile picture is of me with Ultimate Warrior face paint. And I think that's all I've got. Yeah, I covered the Twitter and the Facebook and YouTube. Yeah, I think I covered about all of it.
All right. Well, Brian, thank you for joining us and all that. And as new episodes of Wrestling with Regret come on, we'll be sure to plug them here for you on IHWE Radio, and we'll have you on, once the new episodes start, we'll have you on as a guest again, and we'll kind of talk about what people can see upcoming on Wrestling with Regret, and congratulations on the soon-to-be fatherhood, man. It's going to be awesome.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Thank you. All right, that was the Z-Man Brian Zane. As I said, you can find the video The Heels Lament on YouTube. I would do anything for Heat. You heard the song, you need to see the video. But now, David, you out there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just up.
All right, we're here.
We do that sometimes. We just kind of let each other do our thing. And I was kind of teaching my kid how to do a crossbody.
Awesome. My son the other day just learned how to drop an elbow on my nose, but he did good, though.
Was it a bionic one?
Oh, it was a good one, man. He had the arm up, just bam, pointed the elbow right in the bridge of my nose. It was great.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. You got to learn how to bump feed. Just walk into it. You know, eventually that's what you got to do. You got to walk into it like Dusty Rhodes. People just walk into it.
There you go. We're going to work on that one next.
Yep.
Anyways, we're going to talk a little bit about last week's Cauliflower Alley Club reunion now. Do a little recap of everything, because there's a lot of things going on last week. It wasn't just what we were doing on the air. I mean,
should we, before we do that, should we bring on our caller who's been hanging on patiently since he was a big part of that?
You're right. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Joining us on the line right now in the studio is Brian Westcott. Brian, how you doing tonight, man?
Not bad. Just listened to the interview with Brian Zane. Now the face is familiar. Yeah, he was a manager for Sean Casey and Billy Blade at the Adrenaline Unleashed show back in April 2011.
Anyways, we're kind of doing a little recap of last week's reunion. And, Brian, I got to say right now on the air, let all the listeners know and all that, on behalf of David and myself, I appreciate all the help you gave us last week, you gave me last week, you know, and you helped David as well. Thank you for everything you did, man. We would not have been able to pull it off the way we did without your help.
Oh, anytime I can help out the team, accomplish our goals, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was kind of interesting being on that side of the table for once, and getting to represent and getting to talk to everybody, try to hype up IHWExperience. And, it was not fun seeing our IHWE champion get injured legit during the show. That was
But
not
that's all
fun.
right, Brian, because he was still here. He wrestled twice, and then he threw me out of the damn ring. So, yeah.
No sympathy for Matt Riviera, man.
Yeah, I was freaking out at first. Matt called me on Monday to tell me, and he called me Monday morning, and he said I will be there. He said I will be in Fort Worth on Sunday. So, and he was here, and you wouldn't have noticed anything. He performed. He wrestled twice. He wrestled Ashton Jacobs early on in the night, defended the IHWE Championship successfully, and then he wrestled in the main event. But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it was not fun. I heard about it, but he ended up throwing me out of the ring on Sunday. So, he got a little pre-karma. Maybe he'll get a little post-karma, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, but Brian, you were amazing from what I hear. And I really appreciate that, man. You're so dedicated to the business, and you respect everybody so much. And, I was taught a long time ago by Johnny Valentine that anybody who's got passion and respect for this business, there's something for everybody to do. Maybe not everybody's going to, put butts in seats as far as being a superstar, but everybody who loves this business and respects it, there's a place for them. You found your place. And you're amazing at it, and what you do is a huge attribute to wrestling. And I know the people at the CAC appreciate it, Michael, myself. There's a lot of people that appreciate all the research you do and all the hours you put into things, and you respect the business so much. So, man, I wish there were more people like you around, Brian, honestly.
Thank you so much. Yeah, David Buckler, yes, he has cajoled me. I will help out with Online World of Wrestling once we get, right now, we're switching internet service providers and switching web hosting for my pro wrestling website. So in case you don't see anything going on right now, well, it's kind of in the middle of getting switched over. But the other thing was getting to see the NWA World Heavyweight Championship change hands in Vegas. That was just incredible, and it was an incredible match too.
Yeah, I mean that was crazy. I was shocked. I follow the NWA very closely. I have a very good relationship with Bruce Tharp. Obviously I have a very good relationship with James Beard, who was named Director of Operations for the NWA this past week in Las Vegas. And I was following, and I was shocked because Kojima had just come over and had a string of successful title defenses for NWA SAW and NWA Houston. Defended the title successfully against Carson. I do not recall who he wrestled for NWA SAW. And
Jeremiah Plunkett.
Who was that?
Jeremiah Plunkett.
Okay.
I believe.
Well, he successfully defended against Jeremiah, and then apparently during that, Rob Conway, the former NWA World Heavyweight Champion, made a challenge, and there was only one place where that match could happen, and it happened in Las Vegas during the biggest gathering of professional wrestling there is every year, as far as wrestlers, legends, and fans. Not WrestleMania, because WrestleMania is different because fans get to, access is a little bit different. The CAC is more, I think the CAC is a better experience and more personable. But anyway, yeah, that was huge. I was shocked because nobody could have seen that coming. The NWA has a very good working relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I know that will continue. But I was shocked. But hey, that's cool for everybody who was in attendance. That's awesome that everybody got to see an NWA World Heavyweight title change. For years, a lot of people said that the NWA was a thing of the past. But now with this new regime, it really seems like they're really coming back and doing some good stuff. So I'm anxious to kick back and look forward to see what they do. I have a very good relationship with Bruce Tharp. And he's been nothing but respectful to me and what we do up here with IHWE. So I got a lot of time for people like that. Bruce doesn't look down on people. I do my thing. They do theirs. We respect each other. and it's great. It was awesome. I'll say this, and I'll let Brian talk. It was awesome that 2 promotions in Texas, and the NWA isn't just a promotion. It is a brand with several different promotions in it. It was awesome to see 2 groups, one smaller than the other one. IHWE is not as big as the NWA, and I can say that, but they were proudly represented at the CAC, the NWA, and IHWE, and that was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was nice getting to meet Ross Conway in person, getting to meet Kojima, getting to meet, from Matt Riviera and Greg Anthony before the show started. Basically, I got a ringside pass. We were supposed to conduct interviews with Heart Radio, but, that's a whole other kettle of fish. But anyway, so all I did was I just sat at ringside. I just wrote down the match results, typed them up, and sent them out by email. So,
That's how I got
to hang out with some photographers, Thomas Root and Wade Palmer out of Ohio. And, hopefully we'll get to see, I know they're planning some big things for next year. Like I say, fans, as soon as we find out the details, get your tickets immediately, get your reservations immediately. We know the date will be April 13th, 14th, 15th, 2015. I assume we'll probably be at the Gold Coast again.
We will be at the Gold Coast again, yes.
Okay, good. But, once we find out the other details, this one's going to be big, big, big. We have a new CAC president, be Brian Blair, and Morgan Dollar will take over Carl Lauer's position as executive vice president and handling the financial purse strings. Also, one of the big and really unexpected moments was Cowboy Bob Kelly. His wife, Chris, passed away. She was a real sweetheart, just a friendly presence at the CAC reunions, at the Gulf Coast Wrestlers reunion. Well, anyway, Chris wanted to go to Africa for so many years, and our one good dear friend and who couldn't be there this year, Archbishop Jason Sanderson, he runs the Liberal Catholic Church. Anyway, he's also running some orphanages in Africa and for AIDS orphans, and he named one of these orphanages after Chris Kelly, and that's not a dry eye in the audience, just huge standing ovation. They also gave an award to John Cosman, also known as Principal Richard Pound, out of Canada. Well, John Cosman, he's got cancer, and he's going to be going through chemotherapy treatments. So just a really nice, unexpected stuff like that. Just really made CAC reunion worthwhile. Getting to meet Miss Dyslexia, she was cool, and she helped us out signing autographs. And just getting to represent IHWE, and just looking forward to bigger and better things to come.
Oh, I got to add to that. I got the chance to meet Miss Dyslexia the first day we were there, and she was awesome. She came by the table. She sat for a while, signed some autographs and all that. She definitely got some attention there. I'd like to have her on the show sometime, just interview her for a little bit. But as far as Brian was saying about, the Tuesday night, whatever, there definitely was not a dry eye in the house. In fact, it was kind of almost too, emotional. It was very somber with, Richard Pound and then Chris Kelly and all that. But, they definitely picked it up Wednesday, because Wednesday was a lot more of the celebration of everything with, Short Sleeve Samson and all those. If you get a chance, I think they've got it up on YouTube, some of the acceptance speeches. If you get a chance to see Short Sleeve Samson's speech, you need to check it out, because that was probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen at the CAC. Because if anybody knows, Short Sleeve Samson obviously is a midget, a little wrestler. We'll say a little fella. He's a
he's a little fella. We're PC here.
Little fella.
Now.
I don't know the PC terms here.
The hell out of here. We don't have midgets around. Little people.
Hey, he referred to himself as that at one point. So,
well,
anyways,
he can.
No offense,
he is one. I mean, no, he's not. Damn it, Michael.
No offense to Short Sleeve, man. He was an awesome guy. He's going to be joining us on the show soon. But his acceptance speech was great, because he started off behind the podium. The first thing he asked is, where'd everybody go? Because he's looking behind the podium. I mean, he had the entire audience cracking up. He's a great guy. I mean, definitely brought some spirit to that. And Michael Hayes accepting the Lou Thez Award. Jerry Briscoe presented the award to him, and Briscoe had the entire audience be quiet for a second, keep it low, because he was trying to figure out what this noise was. And he's listening. He's like, "Do you hear it? It's getting louder. It's getting louder." And we're all sitting there, quiet as church mouse. We're listening like, what the hell is he listening for? And we're like listening for it. And all of a sudden, Jerry Briscoe goes, "You hear that? It's the sound of Lou Thez rolling over in his grave because a Freebird is accepting an award based on it with his name on it." Briscoe had
I would hate to see the bar. I would hate to see the bar tab in Las Vegas for Jerry Briscoe and Michael Hayes. I would hate to see the bar tab. My God, you got an Oklahoman, you got a red man, Oklahoma, Native American from the great state of Oklahoma, and you got Michael Hayes, who they could, if somebody wrote a book about him, Michael Hayes may disappear and never be seen again. If somebody ever writes a book, a true to honest to goodness book on Michael Hayes, because wow. No, what was cool, Michael sent me a picture on Wednesday night, and Michael Hayes, not Michael McCurdy, Michael McCurdy sent me a picture of Michael McCurdy and Michael Hayes, and Michael Hayes was holding the Terry Gordy Memorial poster, and we had that on Sunday at IHWE, so that was really cool that Michael McCurdy sent me that picture of Michael McCurdy with Michael Hayes.
All right, let's get all these Michaels straight. You do not know how tough that picture was to get, because unfortunately Michael Hayes did not come in until right before the banquet started. I believe he was there, but he didn't come downstairs. And afterwards, he had somewhere else he had to go to. So he's kind of on a beeline for the door. But I got in there, got him the poster. I think it was actually the picture of Terry Gordy that got him to stop for a second, because he actually asked, he goes, "Hey, wait, what's this?" And I got my picture with him. Went and took another picture of a friend of mine with him real quick. While I'm taking that picture, I just threw it out there. June 8th in Dara Center, Terry Gordy, Mario Battle Royal, Connie and the Daughters are going to present the winner of the trophy. If you can make it to the show, there's a guaranteed seat waiting for you. He hopes to see you there. I spit it out in like 30 seconds. He shook my hand, said, "Thank you, man," and he walked out the door.
Right.
But Hayes got probably one of the biggest.
He did not show up on Sunday, but no problem. It's a thought in the
he knew about
account. Yes, he did know about it. I'm sure he talked to Connie about it. So, and hopefully, Connie called him Sunday or Monday and told him about it. And hopefully, she seemed very pleased. But like I said, we'll get into that here in a few minutes when Craig Johnson calls in. So.
Oh, definitely. And I will say that Michael Hayes got one of the biggest, ovations of the night, because he came up to accept his award, and the first thing he said was, "This award doesn't belong to me. This award belongs to myself, Buddy Jack, and Terry Gordy." As soon as he said those two names, the entire room stood up and applauded that man for about 2 minutes, because he made the comment. Yeah, he would not be here if it wasn't for his Freebird brothers.
Well, I'm glad he said that, because that's a shoot. Nothing against Michael Hayes. He was charismatic before charismatic was an in thing. But you had two guys who understood how to work and Michael knew how to work. And I get it. People get beef flack. I thought Terry Gordy was the best worker in the Fabulous Freebirds. I just thought he was. Nothing against Buddy Jack Roberts. He was great. Buddy's one of the best of all time. Out of the three, I like Terry more. And I think Terry, I think did, it's hard. I'm a Terry Gordy fan. Terry went on to Mid-South and held the UWF title on his own. He went on to Japan and formed another legendary tag team with Dr. Death Steve Williams, and I think that speaks to how great Terry was. Buddy Jack Roberts was Dale Valentine for a while. He actually, mentored Johnny Valentine, the man who broke me into the business. And then Buddy had his run down here. Michael went to several territories and was Michael P.S. Hayes. Everybody knows who he is. And now he's got a very nice job, with WWE as a vice president of creative. Or I don't know what title he has now, but he's involved in creative. And he's been there for a long time. So, they all deserve credit, all of them. Anybody who says they don't is an idiot. They all deserve credit. They lit a territory on fire. But I don't think that Michael, Buddy, or Terry would have had the career that they did, either in singles or in tags with the Freebirds or other people, if it wasn't for that run that they had down here. I think they had a run in New York. They had a run in, other places, but I think it was the run here in Dallas, Fort Worth, that put the Freebirds on the map. And I don't think I'm wrong for saying that. I don't think I'm out of line, because I think everybody who knows this business would say the same thing. And that took them to not bigger things. It took them, and they did other things because of it. So, but I'm glad Michael said that. I'm glad he got honored. I think,
awesome. Definite.
Good times.
And obviously in Michael Hayes fashion, he was, the suit of the night with his purple suit and purple shirt and white shoes and fedora. Yeah. Michael Hayes dressed the part, I tell you. He was everything you would expect from the Freebird. But I want to throw in.
I told you Morgan Dollar and Michael Hayes would have. Who would have? They should have. If they had a chance to take a picture together, who would have the best hair or the brightest color of hair?
I would say Morgan won the hair, and it went well with the salmon color, or I would say pink shirt that he was wearing. He would say salmon color. I think I heard him refer to that a couple times, but we're not going to make fun of Morgan, because Morgan is a friend of our show, and we love Morgan.
Morgan is the man. I've said that every week. Morgan is the man, and he is he's going to be the EVP. He's going to be the VP. He's the elect right now. He is the man. I love Morgan because he's money. You know why? Because his last name is Dollar. That's all you need.
There you go. And yes, he is the Executive Vice President-elect for 2015. Brian Blair is the President-elect for 2015, because Carl Lauer made it very specific that some of these dirt sheets, websites, however he referred to them, saying that Brian Blair was the president, and was incorrect. He's President-elect. Nick Bockwinkel is still president until April of 2015, when Brian will take over. So
I have a question. We need to find out, do you think Brian Blair, this is a serious question, and I need everybody to get serious for a second. Do you think Brian Blair, the elect president of the Cauliflower Club, is allergic to bees?
Well, you know what? When it comes on the show, we'll ask him.
We need to ask him. I think that's a legitimate question.
Only on IHWE radio, man. The hard-hitting questions.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. I mean, I know he's probably been asked that 100 times, and journalists are jumping all over each other. I don't want to be John Stossel here. But anyway, well,
you don't want to be John Stossel if we're interviewing Dr. D. I think we're okay if we're interviewing B. Brian. I think we're all right.
Yeah,
he
got his upcomings, let me tell you. All right, Michael, I think we got a guest on the line. Do we want to go ahead and bring him on?
I suppose we can.
Okay.
You're the director.
I am the director. I'm glad you reminded me of that. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes you just go on and on and on, and I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? Anyway, I believe on the line
I've had to produce a lot of shows, so.
You have had produced. Congratulations. You now can put that on the back of your chair. I believe on the line is Craig Johnson. Am I correct?
You are correct, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring on. He was the man behind the microphone for the USWA, for the Global Wrestling Federation in Dallas. He kind of came in after Mark Lawrence and had his swan song. And he was the voice for a lot of great moments in Dallas and Fort Worth wrestling. And he made a return to the ring on Sunday for all shows, IHWE. It was a wonderful experience meeting you and having you at the show. Craig, welcome to IHWE Radio.
I'm glad to be here, and yeah, it was wonderful stepping back into a Texas wrestling ring for the first time in 22 years, and it seems like Global was just yesterday, and whenever I talk to any of my buddies that were involved in that, whether it's Pedicino or Scott Hudson, we all have stories that could be that something that just happened yesterday. It's not that we're totally nostalgic about it because we moved on with our own lives, but it is neat to look back at some of the memories from from those days?
Well, yeah, and you know, and thankfully now, or I don't know if they still do because I don't get the channel anymore because I got DirecTV, but I know for a while, and I think it's still on. Now Global's being ran on ESPN Classic, and now a whole new audience is seeing those shows, and guys like you, guys like Scott Hudson, the wrestlers, the officials like James Beard, like John Keaton, like Rick Manning, they're all getting noticed, and fans are reliving some of those moments. So that's got to be cool. That's got to be cool for you.
Well, it was cool to come back and to, number one, be welcomed back. I mean, you know, Scott Hudson went on to do some great things with WCW, and I kind of faded off into the sunset. Ended up having a great television career. I wouldn't change a thing. But it's to be welcomed back after, as I said, 22 years and not having appeared on any major show was very humbling. And I think what the reason why was that I brought the fans a different way to look at wrestling, because I had always treated wrestling as though it was the same kind of presentation as my Division I college basketball might be, or high school sports, or just about any other sport that I'd covered, because I was a traditional, let's say, sportscaster before I started working in pro wrestling. So I think it was just it was kind of the I'm trying to figure out the perfect word for it. It was kind of the right thing at the right time. And when JR adopted some of the same things, I'm not saying I taught JR anything, but when JR adopted some of the same things to work for the WWE, talking about their athletic backgrounds, and I guess he did some in the Mid-South as well. Nobody had gone as far as we did by acknowledging other federations and acknowledging that they were people before they entered the Global Wrestling Federation or the USWA. I think that's probably why people would remember my commentary more than anything.
Well, okay, so you went and you were broadcasting wrestling in an era, you had just, the world class had just had its rise and not necessarily its fall, just things evolved. And now you're in the USWA, and then you had a career in Global, and then you've done several things since then. So, we talked on Facebook. Thank God for Facebook.
Isn't that amazing?
Thank goodness. Craig hits, just comments on the picture, the Terry Gordy poster, and he's on there his real name, and I didn't put two and two together. And then I talked to Craig, and I asked him like a dope, well, tell me about your background, and he told me his name, and immediately I'm like, oh yes, I know exactly who you are. This is awesome. So. And then I'm like, well, I was like, well, I'll ask him. He'll probably just laugh at me and say, who's this jabron? But, he was very cool. He said he'd love to be there. And he came on Sunday, and I'll never forget this. He came on Sunday, and, of course, the different people now, but some of his friends were there from that era. He walks in. He loves the building. He comments on how great the venue is. And then I had my pre-show meeting with everybody, and I remind everybody while we're here, I remind everybody to go out and be safe. Don't want to see anybody get hurt. And, I dismiss everybody because we're about ready to rock and roll. And I look over at Craig, and Craig was like, remember, you need to have fun too. And I was like, okay, nobody else said that. He did. And he only known me for maybe a couple hours. So that was really cool.
And one of the reasons I mentioned that is I used to have an improv group in Seattle, Washington, and my group would always have to remind me of that, because here I was busy promoting shows, I was busy producing shows because we were doing long form improv as opposed to the stuff you see on Who's Line, and
right.
I was always so worried about, is the music loud enough? We sold a lot of tickets, blah 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 blah. And then people would say, well, remember, this is an improv show. You're supposed to have fun. And I would go, oh, thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah,
you told me that, and I was like, that was really nice of him to say that. So you do your thing on Sunday. You come out before the Terry Gordy Battle Royal. You welcome Rick Manning, who welcomes Connie Gordy. You commentate with Rob Moore. Yeah, that match is going to be on IHWE TV in a few weeks, and you can actually hear Craig Johnson get back to what he was one of the best at down here. So but when you walked away that night, how was it? How different was it? And obviously you enjoyed yourself because we've talked since then. But what was when you left? What was going through your head? I know you really loved Johnny Gargano and Thomas Shire. I know you loved that match. So what was your thoughts when you left that night?
Honestly, David, it was I'll use a term called surreality. I walked away with, did Craig Johnson just come back? And it's not as though Craig Johnson is a separate person, but that was a part, let's say, and I dare say it, it's a character I've played in my life that's right. Based on the person that I am, but still Craig Johnson is so much different than John Horton, which is my regular life, or different than Cecil B. Puff Daddy, who's a announcer for roller derby. And when I left there, I was like, did I ever stop this? It was as though 22 years had been a day, and I was just doing the next day's television taping. Everything seemed so right, but for the first time since leaving the locker room in Dallas at the Sportatorium, and I'll even say back when I worked there, I didn't feel – I always had this awkward feeling in the locker room. Mm-hmm. And that was that either I didn't belong there or I was an outsider or I wasn't one of the boys. Right. And when I came into the locker room on Sunday, I didn't feel any of that. I saw guys coming up to me, introducing themselves, and then when I'd say my name, some of them go, "Oh, yeah, I know who you are." And I was just so universally welcomed by everybody that it was humbling and it was wonderful. I had never felt so in place at a wrestling show as I did on Sunday night. The Battle Royal was phenomenal. The guys who went into it told great stories with their match. I was just putting out predictions based. Rob was saying, "Who do you have in this match?" And I was putting out predictions based on some of the information I'd gotten about each of the wrestlers beforehand. Right. And I don't know, and I didn't know I didn't know how everything was going to be coming about, and I'm listening to myself say things, and then they happen in the ring, and I'm like, okay, but the story was told so well that it just seemed right, and it seemed like if I were writing a movie or a play, that would be the kind of way that I would do it, and that's when I knew it was a really good match. And the fact that Connie Gordy was there to present the cup, you couldn't help but feel moved by the fact that here are all these, and I'm going to say it, young kids trying to pay homage to one of the great wrestlers of all time, and they knew it was something special, especially since she was there. Right. And I just thought that made for a great night. Long answer to a short question, but hopefully it gave you some good information there.
No, it was phenomenal. Well, we've got Michael McCurdy. He's our host in California on the line, and he was a big fan of Dallas wrestling. Michael, do you have any questions for Craig while we're here? Hold on real quick, Michael, before you say anything. Okay. Michael's my partner, and he gets perks. Michael he actually got to watch Johnny Gargano's match with Thomas Shire from Sunday earlier today through a private YouTube link. He got to see it before anybody else. Nobody else will see it unless you were there live and for a few more weeks. But he got to see it, and so I just wanted to point that out, that Michael did get to see that And he saw what everybody got to see down here on Sunday night and how special that was.
Nice.
You'll see the rest of it here in a few weeks. But, Michael, you got Craig here on the line. Ask away.
I do got to say, yeah, that's one of the perks of being the partners. I got to see one match. You know, eventually I'm going to see the whole show, but hey, but no, for the people out there, when it comes up, IHWE TV starts July 30th, maybe a little sooner. I think David's kind of working something out. We'll have more information on it as it comes. When you get a chance to see that match, sit down, watch it, study it. If you're a current wrestler now, watch these guys. That match was off the chart. That was an amazing match. And if the rest of the show builds up to that, I cannot wait to see whatever else happened. I've seen the pictures. I've seen the photos of the crowd. I know it was a big show. But, yeah, that one match, if that was just a taste of it, I can't wait for the rest.
Oh, and those guys worked their tails off. And you have to remember that Shire had already worked earlier in a battle royal and had won that battle royal. And, you know, that's not the easiest match to go through. And to be able to look as fresh as he did against a wrestler of Johnny Gargano's caliber, give all the credit in the world to Thomas Shire, but also give all the credit in the world to Gargano to work Shire in a way that both of them look spectacular.
Right. I agree.
Yes. Oh, definitely takes two people, man. If one guy can't work right, then yeah, it takes two people to do it right. And like I said, that was a great match. But Craig, I wanted to ask him, as you said, Facebook, whatever. I heard your name come up a few weeks ago, and I heard John Horton. I was like, who? And I went to your Facebook page, and I looked and going, he looks familiar. And then I heard the name. I'm like, oh, hell, Craig Johnson. Yeah, I know who this guy is. Okay, cool. And, yes, they are still running Global Supercard Wrestling on ESPN Classic. I do catch it on occasion. So, but Global had a lot of the big names at that point. I mean, well, they weren't big then, but they are now. You had the Handsome Stranger, which we all know turned out Buff Bagwell. You had the IHWExperience, which is Booker T and Stevie Ray of the Harlem Heat. You had John Hawk, which was now JBL and SmackDown. There were such big names and all that. But on the other side of it, there are also such moments where you either thought, wow, this was great, or you looked at it going, what the hell? I hate to say that, but for you,
Michael, that was after I left that you said, what the hell?
The bungee cord match. The bungee cord match.
Yeah. Scott,
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm referring to, the bungee cord match.
Yeah, we take no responsibility for that. As a matter of fact, if you're a subscriber of the Shit in the Maki Post, which is another legendary thing that everybody goes, did it really exist? It did. We made so much fun of that between the guys who were actually calling global matches, and then we see this stuff. When David Webb got knocked in the head and turned into Elvis, I'm going, really? All the credibility I brought to this show, and you take it away in 1 second. I make no qualms about the fact that I hated almost every single thing that Gray Pearson did. I think he took a shiny trophy and dumped it into a river and put it up there after it had been in sewage water. That's how highly I think of what he did. So when you say bungee match, now there's a shoot interview.
Yeah, we were talking about the bungee match at Cauliflower Alley. Actually, it came up, unfortunately. But with all the names that went through and went on to bigger things and some of the matches you saw, who was one person at that time that you saw on Global that you knew was going to be big and then actually did go on?
Yeah, well, there was this kid who was celebrating his 18th birthday, and he came in and did his first match. We'd heard of him, but he did his first match with us, and when I saw him jump off the top rope and cross-body block Jerry Lynn on the stage, I knew that this kid called the Lightning Kid would probably amount to something. And I'm a little proud of myself because one of the things that I did for Joe Pedicino as we were as we were leading up to Global is I went around and just did some research on some of the guys that from other territories who may not have gotten a lot of experience or a lot of airtime, and we kept on hearing about these legendary matches in Minnesota between the Lightning Kid and Jerry Lynn. And when I saw their first match, now Lightning Kid became the 1-2-3 Kid, became X-Pac, 6-Pac, 2-Pac, and a Dollar. There was a kid who I said, there's no way it can go wrong if he takes care of himself.
Right. And
we kind of know the story of how Sean took care of himself. Wasn't very good. But in his day, and you want to talk about a humble guy? Oh, my God, Sean was one of the nicest guys you could ever imagine meeting before he let fame get to him. And even then, he was really nice, but he just probably didn't remember how nice he was.
But those were the matches. No, those were the matches that I remember. I mean, I grew up in this territory. I grew up world class, USWA Global. I mean, I Steve Austin coming through and feuding with Chris Adams, tail end of, I think it was world class going to the USWA Renegades Rampage, but I remember, Jerry Lynn and 1-2-3 Kid, and I was, and Craig's right. Even as a kid, that was before that became cliche. That was before ECW started featuring guys like Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. That was before WCW had the Cruiserweight. That was before anybody was doing that. You never saw guys like Jerry Lynn. I mean, you might have saw them every once in a while, and they were big in Japan. They were doing the J-Cup for years. But over here, especially in a territory like Dallas, and they were doing somersault sentons from the top rope, landing on the floor of the Sportatorium, getting up, going back in the ring and doing it all over again. They were having the matches that guys on the East Coast have now, and they were having it in the 1990s, the early 1990s, while Hulkamania was still running wild and the Stinger Splash was still going crazy. Guys down here were doing that. So I applaud you for that, sir.
Yeah, and I had my bus too. I brought in Rasta the Voodoo Man, and I'll take credit for Lester. But it's amazing some of the guys who didn't show up too much, but just got that little bit of airtime. Like Axel Rotten went on to have a pretty long career in wrestling after he got an opportunity to be seen on television.
Right.
Some of our guys just stayed Dallas guys, and that was fine for them. But my first day on the job was back with the USWA. It was on my birthday, May the 12th, which also happened to be Kevin Von Erich's birthday, or his worked birthday, because they were having a birthday party on the first show that I did. And my audition was on the air. I didn't do an audition and they said, oh, this guy will work. They literally said, Mark Lawrence has left. John, can you come in and fill in? And I thought it was going to be a 2-week job, and you all know how long I ended up staying.
Right.
And so my first show, first shot in the ring was with Kevin, Kerry, and Chris. And later in the show was Chris Adams against Steve Austin. And it was the first night that Jeannie had attacked Tony. And it was like a who's who. Matt Bourne came out as the Texas heavyweight champion, and he really wasn't able to wrestle. So I had typed up this letter that said, Matt Bourne's not allowed to wrestle, signed Dr. Boombots or whatever, and actually showed it on the camera. I'm up there on the booker's computer just, typing away. But I got thrown into it, and to be able to work with guys of that caliber, I think it was just before Kerry went to the WWE, or it might have been just afterwards, one of the two. and getting to see Steve Austin with his long flowing blonde hair and his Hawaiian tights. You know, people would never think of the Stone Cold that we have today.
No.
and the fact that he was so quiet back then. Jeannie did all the talking for him, and then he'd start and say a few words, and Jeannie would do some more talking for him.
Right.
It was just pretty incredible how that whole thing came about, and it led to me seeing some pretty amazing matches with guys like Cactus Jack. And I can't tell you how nice Mick Foley is, as nice of a guy as you would imagine him to be. And I saw him wrestle in what was then the Tri-States Wrestling Federation prior to Eastern Championship Wrestling and prior to ECW. And
right.
He was in a barbed wire rope match. And I'm trying to think who he was working. It wasn't Funk. It might have been Eddie Gilbert.
Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert.
I think it might have been Eddie Gilbert.
Yeah.
And he got thrown off over the top rope, and he caught himself and was choking between the middle and top rope because it had been twisted. But those were pieces of barbed wire, and I'm going, dude, you're crazy. And his at that time fiance said, yeah, I just can't tell him to stop doing it. And my God, that woman has stayed next to his side the whole way, and you could see through some of the WWE documentaries that, you know, he would give nothing but the most that he had.
Right.
So the kids of today, I know I'm just talking. I just tend to do that, but
okay.
I know the kids of today just will look back at that and go, there was something that these guys had, and each one of them might take a little piece of it, and hopefully be our next generation. And even if they don't make it to the WWE, playing in front of a crowd like they did in Fort Worth the other night, you know, you start with a little bit of a sound, and eventually it becomes a roar. And I think David's done a great job in bringing a new spark into what was a very dry territory, and it may just go up faster than we would ever imagine.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, we had Mick Foley on a few weeks ago. He was on. We actually we did the Hall of Fame in March, and we inducted Gorgeous Gary Young, and I worked a lot, expeditiously actually, to get Mick on to do the podcast that week with Gary together, because they hadn't spoken since 1990.
Wow.
And I got Mick to do it, and we had them both on here for about an hour back in March. And my goodness, it was just, you know, they just started talking, and we just kind of sat back and we just kind of listened, you know. And I was very close with Maniac Matt Bourne. He came back down here in 2010, and he worked for me. He did Doink the Clown. Every promoter wanted Doink except me. I said, I don't want Doink. I want Maniac Matt Bourne. I said, that's who I remember. No offense to Doink. Doink was great. But I said, I don't want Doink. I want Maniac Matt Bourne. And before Sunday, Craig, before the show that you did on Sunday, Matt set the attendance record for us back in 2010 with 330 people. So we broke that on Sunday. But Matt was he loved what we did. And, you know, he was a real good friend. And back in March, his kids flew down from Pittsburgh, and we re-inducted him into the Hall of Fame in front of his kids.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm big on that. I was broken by Johnny Valentine, and I'm big on the legends. And you know, that's why Black Bart was there on Sunday. That's why Chico Torres was. That's why you were there. That's why Rick Manning. You know, we honored Terry Gordy. You know, that's what I get a kick out of, because it's a mix of the old school and the new school. And the legends being there, they also will take the time to pull a guy aside and say, hey, I like what you did here. Try this next time. And then the guys, they get to hear from guys who were on top down here. And they're going to get that opportunity again come September with Jim Cornette, with Stan Hansen there.
Oh, my Lord.
You know? Yeah.
That's going to be awesome. You know, one of the big surprises that I loved was Chico Torres being there. Now, I worked with Chico mostly on Saturday mornings, because he'd be a guy that Jared would bring in and go, okay, Chico, I need you to work with this guy, and you knew what that meant. But I was the announcer that actually saw Chico Torres get inducted into Devastation Incorporated. And it was very short-lived, but he actually came up to me and said, you know, Craig, I'll always remember when you were there and I got to be a part of Devastation Incorporated for that short amount of time, but you made me sound good. And I just started laughing because I went, oh, my God, yes, he was in Devastation for all of about 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, Chico is he wrestled for me for years, and that guy could go, and he is such a crowd pleaser. We did a meet and greet on Saturday at Kroger, and just people are so enamored with Chico. It's his personality. He's a good guy. So people are just enamored with him. He starts talking, and people are like, oh, and he puts on that hat and that sombrero, and he still dances. He still does La Bamba, and people love it. And he just loves to be a part of it, and that's awesome. I love Chico.
He's a great guy, and like you said, you put the legends around the young guys, and something's going to rub off there. Yes.
Michael, I kind of ran with your. I know you got something else. We still got about 20-something minutes to go. Michael, you got something else?
Well, you always kind of run with what we're going there, but no, you were referring to just you were referring to some of the names, that went through Global and they went on to do these other things. Not really a question, but just kind of a comment. I watched Global when it started, ESPN and all that, when they were doing all the tournaments. You have the North American TV tournament and the heavyweight tournament, tag team tournament, all those. And I saw those guys. And then later on, I'd be watching, a couple years later, I'd be watching WCW, and here comes, the Harlem Heat. And I'd see them go, wait a minute, they have an experience. I know who those two are. You brought in Justin Hawk Bradshaw or Justin Hawk, whatever, when he came into WWF with Dutch Mantell. I remembered him as John Hawk through Global. Same thing with Marcus Alexander Bagwell when Missy Hyatt introduced him. I remembered him as the Handsome Stranger. When the Patriot came over to WWF, I was like, wait a minute. That's the Patriot. He was over in the Global. So for me, watching it all, Global had such a huge, amount of stars. Well, not stars then, but they became stars. They had such great talent. And I know you just referred to Gray Pearson basically kind of took your shiny trophy and turned it into a, But besides that, what was it about? Why couldn't Global be something more? Because they had such a large talent base. What was it that kind of just caused the demise of it all?
Well, for one thing, I have to use his line. But I have to use his line. What about Raven?
And Raven, that's right.
Scott Anthony. What about me? What
Scott
about
Anthony.
Raven? Here's what I can tell you. The honest to God shoot of what happened. We had a budget that was provided by a family in Atlanta. They were named the Overstreet family, and they took it as a business venture along with Max Andrews. The cost of doing TV wasn't so much, but the cost of doing the live shows was really, really killing them. And the reason it was killing them so bad was because you'd fly in a crew from Atlanta and you'd have them wrestle in Dallas, and even though you do it 2 nights, the territory had kind of been burned by that time. So we were coming in at a time when we had to try to get the crowds to trust us again. David, tell me if this ever sounds familiar. And after a while, they just couldn't afford to fly people in anymore. And that is when I left was the last of the Overstreet era, and Eddie was able to stay there a little while longer because he was getting paid by the Andrews money. But when Eddie left, that was the last of the Pedicino, Bill Eadie, Overstreet Global era. everyone always hears the story about Olu Oliami, about the big Nigerian investor who came in and talked to Pedicino, and Pedicino talked about having all this money from him. That guy was a legit guy, believe it or not. He was actually at a Nashville taping, and he was one of the most amazing con men any of us ever met, because he had us all believing that this was going to happen. We had plans for our first pay-per-view. We were actually doing some negotiations to do a pay-per-view that wasn't even necessarily going to be live, but it didn't have to be, because there would be no way for the results to get out, because we were going to do the first pay-per-view on the deck of an aircraft carrier and have the Patriot headline it. We were negotiating started negotiations with the Navy to do it, and if that had come through, there was a possibility that HBO was even going to look into investing in it. But all that just kind of fell apart, because we had run the marathon as a sprint, hoping to get to that, and unfortunately we just didn't have anything left for the last 2/3 of the race. Does that answer your question well?
That pretty much sums it up, yeah.
Yep, but that's
now, I do have one more question.
Yep.
I do have one more question before I hand it over to David and Alec, because you did jog my memory a little bit. And this is something I had forgotten. I'm not going to say it's a good thing I forgot, but you did bring it up. What was behind, you mentioned him, Rasta the Voodoo Man? I have not heard that name in 20 years.
I met Rasta, a.k.a. Lester Spite. I met Rasta in Baltimore. And I had done one show in Baltimore for this group that had its television shows on Channel 13 late at night, and Channel 13 is a major station there. And that's where I met Axel, and that's where I met Rasta. Rasta was such a physically imposing character that I said, this guy may go on to do some things. And he could work, but the fact is the gimmick got so far in the way that it killed him before he got out of the box. And just I think he was more impressive in person than he was on television, because he was legitimately a huge chiseled out guy that was naturally that way. It wasn't some sort of bodybuilding thing. And I thought he had an opportunity, so you blame that one on me. That one was totally on me, but I didn't go as far as as Bill Eadie might have with his gimmick. I was just impressed by his actual appearance as a person, let alone a voodoo man who was going to make everybody shudder just by surely thinking about it.
Well, Craig, I think
now, was there
Vince
any
McMahon.
Sorry.
I think Vince McMahon had that same idea. He just took it with Charles Wright, probably a year or two after you did what you did. So I don't think your vision was that clouded. I think you were onto something, and hell, months or maybe a year later, Papa Shango was beating up the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan on WWE television.
Well, and Vince actually took another one of my ideas, which I had actually taken for Florida, but I had fleshed it out a little bit more. I was the one that convinced Eddie Gilbert to let Barry Horowitz win, and
the winner.
that we were. And the way that angle was going to play out is he was never going to win again. He wasn't going to lose. He would find every way he could not have his shoulders pinned to the ground. And it was going to culminate, but not blow off the angle, but it was going to culminate in a match where there must be a winner. And they were going to introduce him, ring the bell, and Horowitz was going to stop the match. And he was going to say, "Did you hear the PA announcer?" And the announcer would go, "Yeah." He said, who did he say I was? And he said, you're the winner. Therefore, there must be a winner. I'm the winner. Give me the best. And he was going to walk to the back. In other words, totally frustrate everybody because he could figure out ways not to lose. Well, I didn't lose, so I must be the winner. And finally, somebody was going to bring that streak to an end. But it would have played out so well with, especially with Horowitz's personality, of all the different things that he could do to just make you so irate at him, but still like him.
He sounds like a wrestling promoter. Well, Michael, before we talk to Craig again about Sunday and let him go for the evening, do you have anything else?
No, I got my questions in.
We're going to get Craig back on here because he is just a fountain of information. So we're going to have to get him back on here.
I'm not a fountain of misinformation.
No, definitely not. I have met a lot of those over the years.
We've had a few of those on the show. No.
Yeah, we have. I have one that calls himself a host on here every week. But
hey.
Oh, Henny Youngman lives. Anyway,
I'm taking over the show one day, man.
It was really cool to have Craig there on Sunday because as I told him, I believe behind the curtain during one of the matches, I said, this is really cool because we've had Bill Mercer, we've had Mark Lawrence, we've had Dole King, and now you're here. And for a kid who grew up idolizing this territory and this business, that is just, it doesn't get much better than that. I had Dole King, came in 2009. He did one show for us. Dole's cool. I like Doyle. He's a character. Of course, Bill came for the one show. Him, Mark Lawrence, and Skandar Akbar did a thing together at my show back in 2008.
Wow.
But, I mean, it's so cool. And, Craig is going to do some more stuff here for us in the future. We've really discovered a gem, and I'm so happy that he wants to be involved again. I'm so happy he was impressed. There's always a worry with me because, we do work hard. Not I, we, our team, we work hard, to put out the best product from visual presentation to everything you can think of. But there's always a worry when somebody who has worked, on a successful television show or they've worked higher up and they come in and, they're either going to be impressed or they're not going to be impressed. It's usually not the middle. It's usually one extreme or another. And I cannot have fathomed. I figured you would come and have a good time, or you would just tell me you had a good time and you never want to talk to me again. But you were so supportive, and it was just so cool, and you were out talking to fans, and it was so cool having you there, and I really look forward to doing some more stuff with you. I want to, maybe the next time we do a media day, I can bring you out and you can do some interviews. Hopefully you can come out July 20th when we have Eric Embry down here. Stuff like that. Because I think it's awesome having you on the team and doing different things, and I think I think the fans who used to watch you will get a big kick out of it. A lot of those fans who used to watch you now lace up a pair of boots. It does a lot for them. I mean, you said it yourself. So many people came up to you on Sunday, and that's what I'm about. I'm about the where we came from, because if it wasn't for World Class, if it wasn't for USWA, Global, I dare say Continental or Confederate, whatever it was, the last major promotion, if you can call it that, to run out of the Sportatorium in the mid to late 90s, we wouldn't be where we're at. So it's a big deal. So I really do appreciate it, Craig.
Well, David, first of all, I'll tell you that, and I'm not going to be trying to put myself over by saying this, but that's just who I am. I mean, I have always lived my life by the platinum rule, which is treat others as you dream they would treat you. And if you live life like that, if you try to make a positive difference in people's lives, you will find that it comes back to you tenfold. And, if I had thought it was a bad event, I would have said, David, it was nice. I enjoyed myself. I think I've got other things to do. But I saw the spark of what could be something really cool and I've stayed away from it for many years. But the fact I don't have a public persona except in roller derby. I don't have anything that I'm worried about ruining a reputation for, and it enables me to go do some fun things and be myself and try to help others become the next generation of what can do something great. So it's my absolute pleasure to be able to work with you, and I look forward to seeing your promotion grow. I look forward to seeing some of these guys become stars in the future, and it's just part of paying it forward, and it's my absolute pleasure to be able to work with you.
Well, I appreciate it, Craig. We're going to give you the floor. I know you're heavy on social media and you do different things. Go ahead and plug away whatever you'd like to, and we'll get you back on sometime soon.
Well, my next appearance will be in the world of roller derby at the NYTEX Sports Center in North Richland Hills, where I go by the name of Cecil B. Puff Daddy, because that is my roller derby name. I am the Minister of Mayhem for the Dallas Derby Devils, which is a women's flat track roller derby league, and they work their tails off in a new rule set of roller derby, which is not quite what you remember growing up if you grew up in the 60s like I did, but it's wonderful athletic women doing some really good things, and then they all go have a beer afterwards. It's great entertainment. You can go to derbydevils.com, and they have all their information there. And then this December, I was lucky enough to be picked as one of the announcers for the World Cup of Roller Derby, which will be streamed worldwide, and actually I think there might even be some television on that, where teams from 30 different countries come into Dallas at the Dallas Convention Center to determine who is the best nation in the world at roller derby. So that's pretty exciting too.
Very cool. And you are, do you want to give out your social media information, or? Oh,
sure. I am John Horton. I am JON. HORTON is my Twitter, and that's the one that I encourage everybody to contact me on. I actually try to keep my Facebook to people who I've actually met and gotten to know, or people that have known me for a long time. So Twitter, I go on it often. I say funny things. I'll talk about my work at SMU, which is the greatest job I've ever had, and hopefully entertain some folks. I think today I talked about the fact that I accidentally put my phone in the refrigerator along with my lunch, and I was happy that I didn't have to make any cold calls. So that's typical of what I put on there.
That's awesome. Well, Craig, thank you so much. Again, thank you for coming on Sunday. Having you there was awesome in so many ways. We got some wonderful pictures on IHWE Professional Wrestling on Facebook. You can see what Craig did, and keep an eye out for IHWE TV, our weekly episodic YouTube show that's going to start in July. You'll be able to see Craig's speech before the Battle Royal and get to hear him call the Battle Royal with Rob Moore. And you'll stay tuned to IHWE, because you're going to see more Craig Johnson. And we'll get you back on here. We'll get you back on here maybe closer to the next show, and maybe in December we'll talk about that World Cup of Roller Derby, because that sounds awesome.
Thank you so much, and y'all have a great week. And again, thank you to the fans for coming out on Sunday night and welcoming me so nicely.
Have a good one, sir. Thank you. Good night.
Take care. Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Craig Johnson. Wow, it was awesome meeting him, guys. I feel very blessed and very lucky, and that just shows you what we're all about. So we got to get him back on, because he has that guy does everything. Hopefully he's going to do some more stuff for IHW. He will be hosting, I can say this because we just worked this out yesterday, he will be hosting the Jim Cornette live experience on Sunday, September 28th at the Sandura Center, hours before the Old School Hustle event. Craig Johnson's actually going to host the Jim Cornette experience Q&A. So that should be very interesting.
How about Craig Johnson be our correspondent?
You know, that's not a bad idea. We may look into that. I will talk to him and see what we got. But anyway, we've only got a few minutes to wrap up. So I just want to before we go, I just want to thank everybody again. The response from the show has been so overwhelming. I could never have fathomed how well this show would have been welcomed. We had our biggest live gate. We've had our biggest live attendance we've ever had. We had just a ridiculous show as well, as good as it was. We had legends like Black Bart, Chico Torres, Craig Johnson. We had Connie Gordy there. We had the future of wrestling, Johnny Gargano, the future stars of Texas. I am so honored. It's a team. It's not me. People are like, well, you had a good show. It's not me. I didn't have a good show. My team had a good show because I'll promote my butt off and I'll get people to the building. But it's the superstars' job to get them to come back. And without superstars, the show doesn't exist. And without a staff to make the superstars look as good as they can, from photography to production to audio visual to setup, everything. We had everything on Sunday. We were at the building for 10 hours, and everything as a whole came together, and that rarely happens. Michael, you know what it's like to set up. You know what it's like to do a show. Brian, you have been through so many shows over the years, and you're a part of the CAC, and you see how that show gets set up in Las Vegas every year. So you guys know how much work goes into these shows. It's not just show up, do your thing, and that's it. When you're in the office, when you're promoting, when you're behind the scenes, it's a lot of work. So, but having Craig Johnson on was fantastic, and he's going to do some more work for us in the future. He's a wonderful man. He's so nice. You know, you meet some of these guys, and some of them are like, you know, they're nice, but they're not nice. He is just nice all the way around. So, but IHWEnow.com for all the information. When IHW TV does start, the weekly new episodes will be there. Johnny Gargano and Thomas Shire, Matt Riviera and Tim Storm against Americos and Seth Shaid, the DFW title match, the Terry Gordy Battle Royal. I can go on and on and on. Every match is worth watching on IHW TV. And if you're a fan of me getting thrown around, you'll see that too.
I can't wait.
I know Michael will be watching that for sure.
Reverse it back and forth, man. It's going to be like my profile video. Look!
Oh.
It's okay. It's okay.
Man. Michael, I would tell you to go be a comedian, but I don't want your family to starve. So.
No, they would starve, believe me.
They would. Yes, they would. So. 2-minute warning, Michael. 2-minute warning.
We are at the 2-minute warning. So you know what? I'm going to do my best impression of how I spoke to Michael Hayes last week at the CAC reunion, because I'm going to do this really quick. I'm not going to give out all my Facebook plugs and everything. Everybody knows they can find me. But I do want to tell you that next week, June 18th, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m., all the other time frames, we are going to celebrate the life and times and the career of a man who can truly be known as a legend, the late Bruiser Brody. We will be joined by his widow, Barbara Goodich. We are going to be joined by James Beard. We are going to be joined by Matt Farmer. We are going to be joined by Karen Merritt, who was a close friend of Bruiser Brody's, went around the ring. Also, she was a wrestler in her own right back in what time frame? But that is next week. Going to be a big show. We do not want to memorialize. We want to remember. We want to celebrate. I talked to Barbara this morning. She's good to go. I am going to issue a disclaimer real quick for any listeners out there who are going to call next week. We will not be discussing the events of July 1988. Yep. We all know what happened. We're not going to discuss that. We are here to celebrate his life. That's next Wednesday, June 18th. It's going to be a great show. I am also going to throw in that I am currently in talks right now with President-elect Brian Blair, Vice President-elect Morgan Dollar, to cement our position as part of the 50th annual reunion of the Cauliflower Alley Club next year. We will be back. We will be doing a live simulcast. We will be part of the promotion of the 50th annual reunion. We are working on that. I am under the 60-minute mark. I am done talking. David, as always, it's been a pleasure. You got anything you want to add? Let's close it up.
All right. Barbara Goodich will be at IHWE Old School Hustle on Sunday, September 28th. She will join Jim Cornette, Stan Delarian Hansen, Charlie Haas, the PWG champion Kyle O'Reilly, and all the other superstars Thank you so much, wherever you are around the world, for making this show, IHWE, the CAC of success. Thank you. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week. Long live Bruiser Brody.